Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yes. My birth experience of giving birth. There were no children in my family, and although there were doctors, there was no one that knew anything about the care of a newborn. So during my pregnancy, aside from being happy and healthy, as I got to my 6th month and realized this child would emerge from me, I was terrified. I heard lots of horrible stories from a number of people about how difficult it was and all of this, and I just didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't have any women in my family I could ask what was their experience. So it was a challenging walk. So it was very, very hot in Atlanta that July. And I remember feeling like I was an oven on broil and that I could not seem to cool my inner self at all. I ate a great deal of watermelon. I just would quarter the watermelon and put it forth in the freezer, and right before it got frozen, I'd take it out, and that's pretty much all I ate for the last month of my pregnancy. So on that Wednesday morning, I woke up and I was feelings I was not familiar with, had never felt that way before. I was at a program that they had at Crawford Long Hospital in Atlanta at the time. It was a teaching program for Lamaze and natural childbirth, and I was choosing to breastfeed. So he'd been through the classes. So when I went to the restroom that morning, I realized that I had had the bloody show. But I had also had the blessing of knowing meditation and breathing. So whenever I received a contraction, I just breathed my way through it. So I called my then husband at the time, who was at work in the city of Atlanta. We lived way out off 285 in Camp Creek Parkway and a long way from downtown, and our doctor in the hospital was downtown. So he came from downtown, came to the house to pick me up, and he would not take my overnight bag, which I'd been carefully prepared for the 2 weeks prior, with all the lovely things that you like to have after birth, which is my gown, my shampoo, and my soap. So he took me down to the doctor, and he didn't believe that I was in labor because every time I had a contraction, I would breathe through it, and I was not screaming and hollering, and I guess he didn't expect that. When we got in the car, we had a 69 Chrysler LeBaron, and the windows down, no air conditioning. I put my arm outside the window, and a ladybug alighted on my arm. And the ladybug stayed with me on my arm all the way down the highway, and something told me then that I was probably going to have a girl. So he took me to the doctor, who said yes, I was in labor, but it would be a couple of hours before I would deliver. So he took me to a friend of his apartment, which he had keys for, and let me in by myself, and I'm sitting there, and I kept feeling that I needed to have a very large bowel movement. And I went to sit on the toilet, and I ended up talking to my sister-in-law while I was on the toilet, and she timed my contractions, and she told me to call my husband before I had the baby in the toilet. So he came and picked me up from there, and we got to the hospital around 5:30, and they did all the regular proceedings. As long as I was in an upright position, I was comfortable in breathing through the process. And as soon as they made me lay down on my back, that's when the contractions were very uncomfortable. We were told to not say we were in pain, but we were experiencing discomfort. So wheeled into the operating room. I got there at 5:30. At 7:30, through natural childbirth with no kind of drugs or anything, my child was born. So she was born healthy, and we immediately went to the breastfeeding program. And I found that was uncomfortable. I didn't know about preparing your nipples prior to breastfeeding. So the first couple of weeks were really uncomfortable for me, but I was dedicated, and so that is the story of how my ladybug came into the world to be the ladybug in my garden.